Hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm doing okay. My dog's better. She has made a pretty good recovery, but she's beat all day long and doesn't really love to walk too much. But she's not in pain anymore, so that's the good thing. Hi, Maisie. My kids are out with my brother and my mom and a nanny, and my wife is at the spa with her sister for the first time. She hadn't done anything for herself in months. So it's just me in the house and you guys. So let's do this. Let's start with MagnaChip. So we are now 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks, post earnings. It was 2 weeks and 3 days ago. And there is no press release that they're doing an accelerated stock repurchase. So that only leads to 3 possibilities. There's no other than the 3. 1, they're actively still looking to sell the company. And as a result, they can't do an ASR or any share repurchase. 2, they have a 10B plan in place and they are buying back stock, but they're not doing it through an ASR. So there's no need to press release that. They could if they wanted to, I guess. It's kind of a weird press release. And they're buying back stock every day. 3, they've changed their mind and they're not going to buy back any stock. Those are the 3 options, right? I feel very strongly that the third option of them not buying back any stock is extremely unlikely, given them going out of their way to talk about how they reiterated the buyback as like their only good news and the kind of pressure they're getting from shareholders and how it's a $37.5 million. It really doesn't matter in the scheme of things. So I think that it's much more likely 1 or 2. And then you have to ask yourself, if they did an ASR in December, we know that they are inclined to do ASRs because they did one already. And they announced that ASR, I think it was like 8 days after the Wise Road deal died. Then how come they're doing a 10B plan this time? When if they did an ASR, it alerts the market that they're doing the buyback and it gets them shareholders off their backs. If they do a 10B plan, they're going to get bothered by shareholders, constantly asking where the buyback is, where the buyback is, where the buyback is. So I think it's more likely than not that it's option 1, which is that they're still in a sales process. Now that the stock's $12.50, if you sell for $18 or $19 or $20, all of a sudden your shareholders are really happy with you. And it's never been at this level to where they can get that kind of premium at 18 or 19 or 20. I mean, $18 is a 50% premium from here. And from an EV perspective, it's like a 100% premium. One thing that I thought was pretty interesting, someone brought to my attention, was if you go back through the old Wise Road deal, you look at the proxy, and there was multiple bidders just for the company's power business. And the power business back then, I did a whole tweet thread on this, but the power business back then, I'm just make up these numbers, so I don't know the exact numbers. I wrote them down on Twitter, but I don't remember. I guess I could pull it up. Hold on. Where is it? Here it is. The power biz in 2020 did 166 million in sales, and that was down from 176 million in 2019. So it wasn't even growing. It was slowly had a slight decline. Okay, I'll repeat that: 166 million in sales, and a group bid 183 to 265 to buy the Power Solutions business on June 24th, 2020. Okay. The first half of 2022, the power business has done 125 million in sales. Now it's going to decline a little bit in Q3. I don't know what it's going to do in Q4, but it's clearly going to do well north of, 210, 220 million of sales this year versus the 166 it did in 2019. If you assume that the power business is worth more today than it was worth when that bid was made, and by the way, that bid was rejected. So that's not to say that the business is worth that. It could be probably worth more. You can reasonably say the power business is worth at least $7 a share. Okay. The book value on this company is $10, and like 6.5 of that is cash. Okay. Some of that book is in the power business, but not a lot, right? It's in some of the PP&E or whatever. And if you assume that the book declines from $10 to $8, $2 of that book goes to the power business, then the $8 for a book, which again is mostly cash, plus the $7 for the power business gets you to $15 a share for Magnachip. And you get OLED for free. Now, the irony in this is that OLED is the reason why the US government and the South Korean government did not want China to buy Magnachip. They are the second largest player behind Samsung in the niche things that they do. And the business is growing dramatically on a secular basis, notwithstanding all the fuck ups that Magnachip have had in the last 2 years with supply and getting design wins for Samsung and you name it. But the concept or the fact that currently Magnachip is the OLED business has an implied negative value of somewhere between $2 and $3, using pretty conservative numbers there. I just used for the power business a similar multiple of sales that they got bid for 2 years ago. That's all I did. And it's growing. Now the power business is growing pretty dramatically versus back then it was shrinking or flat. The only other rub here is that in the next 4 quarters, they're going to spend $80 to $90 million on a variety of things. They're all going to be mostly capitalized. So they'll still be in the book value, but your cash balance is going to shrink. So it's going to go from whatever to where it is now to 200. And then if they do the buyback, which is fine, you really should knock up for that because the share count is going to shrink. It shrinks even lower. So the concept of them having 6.5 of cash, they're probably more likely going to have $4 in cash this time next year. Okay. But even then, at $4 in cash, your book value, again, is still going to be around the $10 level. That money is going to be used to prepay expenses when it comes to prepaying for the fabs. So, you won't have to pay for cost of goods when they actually ship the products. So you'll get the money back. It's your money. You're in a position now, basically, that it's extraordinarily hard for me to see how you lose money from 1250 because the power business is doing phenomenally and it's a standalone business. In fact, one of the articles in South Korea said that they were looking to maybe split the businesses up and sell them in parts. And people were bidding for the power business in the proxy. So there's nothing faulty with my math. The biggest pushback I would give myself is if they don't rebound in OLED and they don't sell the company or they sell power, then the overhead for the two divisions is probably too much to have a profitable company if OLED never rebounds. But I think that you have 3 very strong reasons to believe that OLED will rebound in 2023. Okay, first of all, this has been going on for years, but they are going to go into new verticals in new industries in 2023. They have 3 European car manufacturers. This has been in place since 2021, and they go into production next year, also with some televisions. You have the Chinese handheld manufacturer, which of course is a real big, legit, I think it's Huawei, that goes into production at the end of this year. And finally, they're getting design wins again with Samsung. And once they get the design wins and they have some capacity, the OLED business will ramp again. So, I mean, it couldn't look any bleaker than it looks right now. But the beauty is at 1250, I don't even understand how you can lose money. Absent a large decline in the stock market where things just go down because they go down. So I've added to MagnaChip because I'm a sucker. It's still nowhere near as big as it was at the beginning of the year because it's gone down so much. But I think that when the pain's the hardest, that sometimes that's the best opportunity. And it took me a few weeks to step back from it, to look at it, and get comfortable that the OLED business isn't a zero, because that's, of course, would be the risk. But if the OLED business is a zero, then they'll just sell the whole company for $15. Eventually, $16. If the OLED business has real value, you could easily get back to your $24, $25 a share value again, or higher. And, maybe that's a 2024 sale. At $12.50, if I can get 25 in 12 to 24 months, and I think there's very little downside, I like that proposition a lot. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with MagnaChip. We'll see if we get a press release. If we get a press release for an ASR, it kills my thesis that they're still for sale. But that's fine. That's, I'm not owning it at $12.50 because I think they're going to sell the company tomorrow. But then we get a 6% reduction in share count. And, that's real money. They'll shrink 3 million shares. If the LX bid, which is real, if they really want to pay 1.2 trillion won for this, that's $19.77 for 3 million shares times $7, which is the difference between the 1970 and the 1250. That's $21 million, which is almost, actually it will be, because the share count is going to shrink by 3 million, 50 cents a share accretion. In English, that means that instead of paying 1977 for the company, they can now pay 20 for the company. That's the beauty of the share buyback, right? They pay the same 1.2 trillion won, and it fully accretes them. Fully accretes the current shareholders. So that is MagnaChip. The next one I want to talk about is a new idea that's very, very risky, is SGEN, SGEN. So this is a biotech, a mature biotech, that's like a $30 billion market cap, I think. And the history behind this is that a couple of years ago, Merck bought $1 billion stake in it and had a kind of a small partnership. In February of this year, they blew guidance. In May of this year, the CEO was ousted for domestic abuse. And in June, early June, it was reported by the Wall Street Journal that Merck was looking at acquiring them. In early July, both the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg said Merck was in advanced talks to acquire them. That phrase is very important. When Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg uses advanced talks, there's a well over 90% chance that the deal goes through. It's extraordinarily likely. You can backtest it. A friend of mine backtested it and only found one case in the last 2 years when advanced talks was mentioned that it didn't actually result in a transaction. That said, this is a little different situation. They said in that article, they said that they were hoping to seal the deal by earnings, which was June 28th. Then like 2 weeks later or 10 days later, Wall Street Journal comes out and says, deal is still on track, but they're not going to be able to have it by earnings because they want to see data from an upcoming readout and possibly an arbitration ruling that they were waiting for. The data came out. It was positive. The arbitration ruling came out 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and it was negative. And we've heard nothing since then. No articles, silence. The stock is now in like the mid 160s. People are nervous about why we haven't heard about a deal yet. So I'm pretty constructive on a deal happening here. All the reasons why people point to why there wouldn't be a deal make no sense to me. So the first one would be maybe Merck has decided that it's not worth the antitrust risk and the hassle, and they moved on. If that was the case, you don't get the advanced discussions in July in both Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal. You don't get to that stage if Merck is still doing preliminary analysis and due diligence. Another pushback is there was some data and competitor in August, and maybe that gave them pause. Merck very much knew that that data was going to come out when they were, seeking to sign the deal by earnings. So I don't think anything like that would derail this deal. One of the most interesting aspects of this, actually, which is what I like the most about it, is Baker Brothers, which is one of the biggest biotech hedge funds in the world. They own 25% of this company, and it's half of their entire fund. So these guys can't exit outside of a sale. They can't sell in the open market or do secondaries or whatever. They own too much. So I believe they are motivated sellers and will try to extract the most they can for it. But at the end of the day, if this is about price, then price won't hold it up, and they'll agree to whatever price is the best and final for Merck. If you go back to Merck's conference call in the end of July, the language they used about when asked about how they'd fund an acquisition seemed pretty constructive to me. They didn't talk about this acquisition in particular. Oh boy, NCR is moving. That is good news. It's only been a buck though, but there's definitely an article there for it to pop like that. Now I need to find what the article is. That is good news. We like them when they go up, not when they go down. I believe pretty strongly that if this died, if Merck had decided that they no longer wanted to own SGEN, either because of price, antitrust, competitive reasons, whatever, we would have gotten a leak letting the market know that they moved on. It's a pretty big deal and a pretty big overhang for Merck and SGEN. And I don't think they would just let it linger for 2 full weeks after the arbitration. And in fact, Merck could have decided they were walking before the arbitration. All of those factors were already there. If that's true, Glenn, that's huge, huge news. Glenn's saying there's a story that financing has been locked down for NCR. Glenn, do you know who the source of it is? I see it right there. I am buying more. Do we know where this came from? I guess that's not the best source, but that's not the best source. That's the reason why it's trading where it's trading. I added a little. It should be up a lot more on that, unless it's completely made up. That's the whole thing, the financing, obviously. The fact that we have not heard anything on Merck, that they have changed their mind on this, to me is extremely positive. At any moment, at any point, they could put out a leak. This has been leaked to multiple different publications to say that they moved on. They could say they could just say they moved on because of FTC risk. They don't even have to say it's over price or whatever. And we haven't got that article. So this is the second half of August. It's a slow time of the year. They're going to take whatever time they need to take to do this. I thought it would have been done by now. NCR is the other thing I was going to talk about at some point, which I guess I should have got to earlier. I'm still huge in NCR. All the stars there aligned to me for a sale at significantly higher price point than what it's trading at right now. And, you know, these things probably will happen right after Labor Day, is my guess. But with SGEN, it's a little more tricky because there's going to be a huge spread in this stock because people don't know what the FTC is going to do here. So does it trade? Does the deal get done at 200? Does the deal get done at 210? Does the deal get done at 25? You know, and then maybe take a $20 cut to that where it's going to trade. So I think I'd probably trade somewhere between 175 and 185 is my guess. And if it's a break, it goes down to as low as 135 to 145. And the way I've set up is I own a lot. I was actually told, Glenn, by somebody that the buyer really wants it. Yeah. They genuinely want the asset. It's not a, you know, so they're both very willing. So if the financing is in place, it's a done deal. The only reason why it's not trading higher than 33 is because of the source of who said the financing is in place. It's not Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal or whatever. Anyway, back to SGEN. I own all call spreads, and I put them on higher than here. But if I was going to put on a fresh position today, it would be all 170, 175 September call spreads and 170, 180 September call spreads. And I think you get a really good risk reward return on those spreads. You got to be careful as you leg into them. But I think that it works. And if it doesn't happen by September OpEx, it's not going to happen. There's no reason why it should take more than 3 weeks from now or 2 weeks after Labor Day, if it's going to happen. My guess is it happens, and it happens at like a 205 or a 210 purchase price. Look at this NCR go. I love when it happens on live YouTube. I was actually thinking on YouTube something would happen with SGEN. I wasn't expecting anything to happen with NCR. But hey, I'll take it. I even added small call spreads yesterday. Oh, it's awesome. What's next? Peloton. So I have been trading Peloton since my last YouTube. I took off all my common a few weeks ago, and then I delta hedge shorted some stock against my call spreads when the stock was like $11.50 or like $12, something like that. So yesterday I missed almost the whole move up because I was delta hedged. And today I missed a lot of the move down, but I took off my whole hedge at around $11.50. And I've also sold some puts. I sold some September and October puts. So my position in Peloton now is I'm short out of the money September and October puts, and I'm long 11.13, 11.14, 11.15 September, October, December, and January call spreads. You know, I don't have a lot to say about Peloton. Obviously, the quarter was really shitty, but that shouldn't surprise anybody. The Amazon news yesterday was irrelevant. I mean, if it works out great, it's a reason for Amazon to buy them, but I'm not counting on any of that. I still think they're going to sell a piece of the company. They could use some more capital, and I think they'll be able to find someone to buy 20% of it. I think that's a huge catalyst. I think that they're setting themselves up for quarters they can start hitting. You know, this was a nasty quarter. They raised prices, so I have no idea how how they're going to sell through in the coming weeks and months. There's probably easier stocks out there than Peloton, but I'm sticking with it for now. And it's a decent sized position, but it's all call spreads and I'm short puts. Unicure is doing great. See, it's up to 21.25 today. I still own that. Twitter, you know, there's so many people on the internet that talk about Twitter. It seems pointless. I have no idea how the whistleblower is going to affect the case. If anything, it makes it slightly more likely that they'll settle, not because the whistleblower and Elon Musk now has something to stand on, but Twitter might just be more likely to just not want to deal with it and take a couple $1 break and settle. Now, people that follow Elon Musk say there's no way he'll ever settle. I don't believe that. I think that he would definitely settle for the right number. I just don't know if the number is going to $2 off 54.20 is going to be enough for him. In theory, The judge shouldn't even allow anything that the whistleblower has said at trial. Elon broke the contract over a specific item. He's not allowed to now say, oh, wait, they did this. I want to break it over this too. He'd have to amend his complaint. The judge would have to allow him to amend his complaint. But most importantly, nothing that the whistleblower alleges, I believe, is a material adverse effect, right? There's nothing to do with their revenues, nothing to do with their expenses. It's if anything, it's their controls. And if it's true, and then you'd have to argue whether or not, it was done negligently, or like it wasn't disclosed properly. And I just think it's a huge uphill battle for him, as usual. So I only own Twitter spreads. I am not short any comment against Twitter. It's a decent sized position too. And I've kind of made my bed there, and we'll see what happens. I would buy Twitter common if it got down back to like the mid high 30s. But if it got to the mid high 30s, something probably happened. I hate when people in this business say they'll buy XYZ stock down 25%. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, because guess what? When it's down 25%, it was down 25% for a reason. It'd be like me telling you when Magnachip was 16, I'd buy it at 12.50. I am buying at 12.50, but you know what I'm saying. There was a reason why I went to 12.50. It wasn't 12.50 acting like a $16 stock with a $16 business. I really want to read this NCR Pro Bazenga. Has a source. I bet you it's right. I'm sure they probably did lock down the lending. Very good news for me. It's a huge position. So if we can get that NCR over the hill, I'll be very happy. NCR and SGEN right now, those are the two that matter to me the most, and of course Magnachip. But the short-term stuff, I still own Lionsgate. I think something's going to happen there in September. I talked about that on my last YouTube. Let's talk a little bit about App, IS, and U. So this is a really weird one. App has still not come back with another bid. And as you know, the history behind this, I did it on my last YouTube. You rejected the App bid, and now we're waiting for App's response. And it's been over 2 weeks, and App's been silent, and the stock just keeps going down. I made the spread smaller. It's a much smaller spread now. I'm long IS2, and I actually bought App because part of me thinks something funky is going to happen there. Like KKR might do something where they infuse a huge amount of cash into the new company at a premium price. I don't know how any other way they can make a deal attractive for either you or App shareholders without them just infusing a huge amount of money in the new company somehow by buying a stake in NewCo. I still think IS wins this, and there's a decent chance we just get a PR eventually from App saying they moved on. But yeah, so now I'm long App, short a very little bit of U, and long a decent amount of IS. I think that's about it. That was not very long, 28 minutes. Any questions? I'm shocked NCR is not higher on somebody saying that they have financing and there's a source, but it's Benzinga. I mean, it's one of the lowest quality sources, but source, right? Can't lie about source, can you? I mean, of course you can. All right. Well, the next time you see me will be hopefully some good news in either Magnachip, NCR, or SGEN. And hope you guys have a nice weekend. Unless something happens tomorrow, then I'll jump on. And with that, I bid you adieu. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.